Okay. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you to everyone for attending tonight's meeting of the San Bruno Community Foundation's Board of Directors. We are back in person at the San Bruno Senior Center, and we welcome members of the public who are attending via Zoom. We appreciate your patience if we have any technical hiccups. We ask speakers to speak loudly and clearly so that the microphone can pick you up and that our online guests as well as everyone in the room can hear you well. Can you all hear me? Awesome. A couple of technical items before we get to the content of tonight's meeting. Please know that we want to hear from you. Members of the public who are here at Senior Center in person, if you would like to speak during public comment for items within the jurisdiction of the board that are not on the agenda or on any of our agendized items, please fill out one of the speaker cards that is on the table near the door. If you are attending on Zoom and you would like to address the board during public comment for items not on the agenda or on any of the agendized items, please use the raise your hand button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Once you raise your hand, the executive director will see that someone wants to talk and will let you in and let you know that you are in waiting. When it is your turn to speak, the executive director will call your name and unmute you. If you are joining us by telephone, you may also address the board during public comment by pressing *9, and the executive director will again address you and unmute you. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to address the board. Please note that individuals may only speak once per agendized item. Also note that prior to the meeting, did we receive any emails or comments? Okay, great. So let's begin. I now call the regular meeting of the San Bruno Community Foundation Board of Directors, November 1st, 2023 to order. Roll call, I'll turn it over to our secretary, Ronald, thanks.
Thank you, President Melissa Natani Jones. Excuse me. Board member Belinda Wong.
Here.
Board member Ernie Torres. Here. Board member Supriya Perry.
Here.
Treasurer Pat Lynn.
Here.
Secretary Raul is here. Vice President Jim Ruane.
Here.
And President Melissa Natani Jones.
Here.
All accounted for.
Thank you. Now to item number 3, public comment. Would any members of the public like to address the board on a topic that is within the jurisdiction of the board and is not on the agenda? Please.
There is no one online.
Okay. All right. So we will move to item number 4, approval of the minutes, and I'll turn it over to you, Secretary Gomez.
Thank you again. So in your packet, you have the minutes from our September 6, 23 regular special board meeting. Should you have any questions, you can direct them to the president.
Are there any questions from the board? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Okay. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to Secretary Gomez.
Thank you. Board member Belinda Wong.
Aye.
Board member Ernie Torres. Aye. Board member Supriya Perry.
Aye.
Treasurer Pat Lynn.
Aye.
Raul Gomez is an aye. Vice President Jim Ruane.
Aye.
President Melissa Natani Jones.
Aye.
All ayes.
Any questions from the public? No? Okay. Thank you so much. Item number 6, consent calendar. We have one item on the consent calendar today.
You missed item number 5.
I lied, and I apologize. Item number 5 is the executive director's report, which is really important. And I'll turn it over to our executive director, Liliana.
Thank you. It's great to see everyone here tonight. It's, as you all know, it's been a rough 6 or 7 weeks for me. And I really appreciate all of the support and well wishes I received from that. I am doing much better now, and at least visually I'm doing better. Although additional treatment is probably going to be needed, so stay tuned for that. The meeting packet contains my written executive director report. In the interest of time, we've got a packed agenda. I'm not going to cover everything, but just some of the highlights. First, I just wanted to mention that I had the opportunity to opening of the YouTube's new building, at 1400 and 1450 Bay Hill today. Vice President Ruane also attended as the former mayor. It was a wonderful event, with beautiful weather. The buildings are beautiful, the new buildings, so they're the two back behind the main 901 Cherry, sort of headquarters building. One of the great things we learned today, and our guests from the School District Education Foundation are thrilled as well, that as part of this, YouTube and Google are donating $200,000 to the San Bruno Education Foundation for the school district's STEM offerings. So that is wonderful to see those companies continue to give back to our community. And we are greatly, we greatly appreciate that. Second, on our board meeting calendar, just want to make sure you mark the first Wednesday of the month for 2024. Make sure you have those on your calendars for next year. There may be some we will be able to cancel if we don't have business, but I want to make sure you do get those on your calendars. Early, the first quarter is usually a little lighter on the business side, and we're going to take advantage of that to do some of our strategic planning sessions on those meetings, so we probably will have most of those. The January meeting is actually January 3rd, which I know falls in the middle of, families' holiday breaks. And we may need and want to have a January meeting. So if you do not think you are going to be in town and you're not going to be able to make that January 3rd meeting, please let me know sooner rather than later, so that if we don't have enough people, we can just cancel that and have a rescheduled special meeting in January. So please let me know. The annual report. I want to make sure you all got your copy in the mail. We have more copies on the back table as well. So this 12-page document went out to every commercial and residential address in San Bruno, as it does every year. We moved to 12 pages versus 8 a couple of years ago, and seem to be able to fill that still because we've got lots of news. It's also posted on our website in PDF format. Please feel free to share that with your networks, and I can get you more paper copies if you would like that. And that is my report for today.
Thank you, Leslie. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, any questions from the public?
None online.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that report. Now we're moving to item number 6. Right, okay. Consent calendar. Receive and approve treasurer's report, August and September, and the July 2023 financial statements. We have one item on the calendar as listed in the agenda. Would any of the members of the public like to comment on the content of this item? No? Okay. Unless there are questions from the board, I call a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
So motion. I'll second.
Great, thank you. I'll turn it over to Secretary Gomez.
Thank you. Board Member Belinda Wong.
Aye.
Board Member Irving Torres. Aye. Board Member Supriya Perry.
Aye.
Treasurer Pat Flynn.
Aye.
Secretary Raul Gomez is an aye. Vice President Jim Ruing. Aye. And President Melissa Natani Jones.
Aye.
All ayes. Thank you.
Item number 7, conduct of business. Receive report from audit committee and presentation from Novogradac and Company LLP regarding the San Bruno Community Foundation's audited financial statements for the year end of June 30th, 2023. Adopt resolution approving the foundation's audited financial statements for the year ended June 30, 2023, and discuss foundation's annual federal and state tax returns. I will turn it over to Secretary Gomez, who's the chair of the audit committee, and will introduce the report.
Thank you. Earlier this year, the board approved engagement with Novogradac and Company to conduct the annual audit of the foundation's financial statements and prepare the foundation's federal, and state tax returns for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. In July, accounting consultant Frank Bittner and executive director Leslie Hadamia began preparing the financial reports and documentation for the audit, submitting all of the requested materials by August 28th. The Novogradac team, which was again headed by partner Lance Smith, examined the foundation's financial records, accounts, business transactions, and accounting practices, and internal controls. Leslie and Frank responded to several follow-up requests for additional information from the Novogradac team. On October 16th, the audit committee met to discuss with the Novogradac team the audited financial statements that the Novogradac team had prepared. By the resolution, the committee accepted the audited financial statements. Following the meeting, the Novogradac team produced the final audit report and the AU-C260 letter, which were in your meeting packet. The Novogradac team also prepared the foundation's federal and state returns and the current draft, which Leslie and Frank have reviewed and was distributed to the board to review 2 weeks ago. The plan is to finalize and submit them by the November 15th deadline. You will have an opportunity to ask any questions about the tax returns after our auditor's presentation. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Lance Smith, who will walk the board through the audited financial statements. Lance?
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. You did a great job summarizing our process. And so it's a pleasure to first thank Leslie Amaya and Frank Bittner for their services in being able to help me be able to get the information I needed to be able to issue a clean opinion on your financial statements for this past year. I've been invited to just give some of the highlights of the financial statements we have. I know that was your package, that was the first thing you rushed to. I'm most excited to be able to see, everybody wants to see audited financial statements. And they certainly want to hear from the auditor because they're well known for their great public speaking. But I'd like to point out some of the major highlights. So first we've got, Leslie will kind of run through the financials there. The first part of our report is clean. There's nothing substantially new on there. But on the first page of the statement of financial position, so I'll reference the page numbers. Hopefully you can identify the page numbers there. But there's two major activities, one really big activity and one slightly minor. More of a repeat of last year, or a second wave of recovery from last year. Last year, you know, we made a large grant for the recreational and aquatic center. Those funds, you can see, are now being spent down, and so your investments have decreased as you spent those funds. That can be seen on the first page there. The second part on that is the approved grants. When the grant was made, our large accrual was made last year, and you'll see the accrued grant being paid out as that grant is being done. Jumping to page 5, you'll see the grant expense as well, just to kind of see that major part of that. And so last year, the grants were much higher as a result of that one-time grant for the center. Now, this year, there's more stable ongoing items. The second major item going on, while we're still on page 4, if we could, you'll see the investment income has actually gone up tremendously. Last year, you suffered tremendous losses, unrealized losses on your portfolio. Unfortunately, it was much better from having a $6 million loss last year to $2.7 million income this year on your portfolio. I know that's a major focus of what you guys want to maintain and watch because that is the major portion of where you have your funding. So all other activities on the financial statements were fairly consistent and normal from my observations. So there is one new standard that came into place and has minor effect. On page 3, you'll notice a right of use asset and right of use liability. That is the new accounting standard for leases, requiring essentially to put that on the balance sheet so you can see what the full right of use, what your use ability is as an asset, and then of course the corresponding liability that goes with that. Note 3 is the final item I want to point out on financials on page 11. And this is important to make sure because again, knowing what funds you actually have available. And so a lot of organizations will get their funds tied up. They can have a lot of cash and they say, we've got a lot of cash on the balance sheet, but then they find out that they overcommitted themselves and in various ways. So this, I think, a good standard note to be able to reflect is the liquidity and availability of your funds, showing what cash funds you have to be able to maintain your operations and keep your doors open. I think we've got a fairly decent number on there as well. So those are the main highlights. Again, we also issued our management letter, what we refer to as our 260 letter, management, and it's pretty standard, consistent with what we've issued before, nothing new, other than the issue of referencing, we do reference that new lease standard that you've adopted. So hopefully that was major highlights there, and very well.
Thank you so much, Lance. Are there any questions from the board? Any questions from the public?
Then online.
Okay, well, may I call for a motion to adopt the resolution approving the foundation's audited financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
Excellent. I'll turn it over to Secretary Gomez, please.
Board Member Belinda Wong.
Aye.
Board Member Irving Torres. Aye. Board Member Supriya Perry.
Aye.
Treasurer Pack Lynn.
Aye.
Raul Gomez is an aye. Vice President Jim Roy. Aye. President Melissa Natani Jones.
Aye.
All ayes.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on to item B, receive report on music education strategic initiative from San Bruno Educational Foundation, San Bruno Park School District, and Cappuccino High School. The Music Education Strategic Initiative is a partnership between San Bruno Community Foundation, the San Bruno Education Foundation, and San Bruno Park School District, Cappuccino High School, and the Cappuccino High School Alumni Association. It was created with the goal of making music education a hallmark of San Bruno's public schools. The original grants totaled $495,000 over 3 years. And then we extended the initiative for a 4th year with another $68,000 in grant. For San Bruno Education Foundation and the San Bruno Park School District, we allowed use of the grant funds to extend into the 5th year, as the elementary school music program could not be effectively delivered to the students virtually during the pandemic. In April of 2022, the board approved 2 additional years of funding for the initiative, providing $270,000 to the San Bruno Educational Foundation to jumpstart a new 6th grade music program at Parkside Intermediate School, and $20,000 to the Cappuccino High School music program for transportation and other costs related to performances and competitions, replenishing the instrument supply and instrumental vocal section coaching. The foundation provided SBCF and CHSAA with their 2nd year of funding on the new grant in August. We're pleased to hear a report tonight on the progress of the initiative. First, I'd like to welcome San Bruno Park School District Superintendent Matt Duffy and San Bruno Educational Foundation President Heather Lata, who will report on the launch of the new 6th grade music program at Parkside. Then we'll hear from Cappuccino High School Music Director Jonathan Hsu on the CAP music program's use of grant funding. Superintendent Duffy.
Well, thank you, directors, for having me this evening. It's a pleasure to be here. And like Leslie said, we had a chance to spend a lot of time together today, having started our morning together and with Jim at YouTube. So just by way of background, this is now my 2nd year in the district and really loving it and appreciating the partnerships that we have with the Community Foundation, the Education Foundation, and a lot of the great work that's taking place. You're going to move the slides? Okay, thanks. So I wanted to just tell you a little bit about obviously the 6th grade program, but just a little bit more about music in the middle school, especially. Heather's going to talk about elementary. This picture that's on the board is just a fantastic picture. And it's of our middle school program after they had gone to one of our elementary schools to share about what it means to come to middle school and what that's going to look like. And so having the kids travel around to the elementary schools is pretty cool. The younger students get to see them, and I think they feel pretty special about being in this program. So just a great picture we like to show, and just start off by thanking you for your support. We can go to the next slide. So the Parkside Music Program is comprised of a number of different components. It's got the beginning band, the advanced band, there's a chorus, there's a strings and orchestra program, there's now a ukulele program, and there's also after-school support for those students. So the teachers run some programming after school as well. There are about 300 students who take music at Parkside. So it's a 600 student school now, and there's 300 students. So half of the student body takes music, which is pretty amazing. And both the music teachers teach music classes to students in all grades. And we know you funded 6th grade, but the way we've set it up allows the teachers to have contact with all of the kids through all 3 grades. So it's a little bit about sort of the overview of the program. So just a little bit more about how we're building this program at Parkside. So I showed you the picture of the visits to the 5th grade school. So really trying to deepen the connection between the middle school and the elementary schools where the 5th graders get to see and learn. And you'll hear a little bit more about elementary. We also actually, it's not on here, did a night where students could come and select their instrument and really get an opportunity to see some of the different instruments in play and think about what they might want to be playing. We've expanded the program, obviously, for our 6th graders. The great majority of 6th graders take music in some form at the school, which is amazing to see. I will say it's cool to have 2 by themselves. So to have a partner is pretty cool. So like I said, we have after school support, and there's really differentiated levels of instruction for beginners, for students who are advanced. So really trying to support all of the different levels. Also, we've made some pretty major upgrades, and we'd love you to come see the school, obviously at a certain point at Parkside, to the multi-purpose room. It's really beautiful. We've done new floors, new windows, new stage, new curtains. We're working on lights because we also have a theater program now, both during the day and after school, and some dance. So just more friendly locations for our students to perform. And then we did also the gymnasium, new paint inside and out, new flooring. So just really very positive spaces for the students. And then just the staff retention at Parkside has been really important. Not just the 2 music teachers, but a number of the younger staff that we've been able to, who are new, who are staying, is exciting. So I think that is all helping to buttress music, and it's not just sort of an isolated kind of growing program. The performances have been fantastic, and we hope maybe you've come to one or seen one. You know, sometimes you see the very beginners and they're just like, you know, they're just learning how to perform and just learning their instruments. But as educators, we're really trying to help our students work towards some sort of final student product or final student performance. And so for our kids to know they have that to work towards has been pretty cool. I really enjoyed experiencing my first of these last year. And so we've got them in the fall, winter, and in the spring. So it's pretty exciting. And I know our high school will talk a little bit as well, but even for that performance, some of the high school music students were there that night. I know this night we took the pictures and working as mentors, sitting in with some of the students, helping get things moving, making the music sound even crisper. So pretty cool. So just a little more about the 6th grade. That's a 6th grade chorus picture you see there, and we can flip to the next slide. So a couple of notes. Last year, some highlights. The 6th graders performed in the talent show, doing Over the Rainbow on the ukulele. That's also helped launch a new course called Cadet Strings. They also performed at the 8th grade graduation, singing the national anthem and another song, Photograph. and again in the winter and spring concerts. They also were part of a group that performed at the Posey Parade with the rest of the music group. So a lot of great things happened last year. And then this year, we've got our fall concert coming up November 15th and 16th. The 15th is for orchestra and choir, and the 16th is band and ukulele. And last year's sixth graders, now current seventh graders, took those ukulele skills, those basic ukulele skills, and are in other string spaces, violin, viola, cello, etc. Last year, all sixth graders took music, and that was amazing. We also did hear, from some of our families, hey, we just want to make sure there's something else if we're looking for something beyond music. So this year we added some new electives: coding, theater, Spanish, media, and we're at about 2/3 of all the sixth graders take music. And that's still an amazing, amazing number. And they're really deepening their plans for travel and performances this year. So using some of their money to buy travel equipment, travel bags, etc. So that's a big plan for this year as well. And with that, I'll stop on sort of sixth grade and middle, and I'll turn it over to Heather. Or I can take some questions first. How should we do it, Leslie?
We can just
Keep going.
continue the presentations and then I'll. do
Okay,
some time for
sounds good. All right, so I think you're switching decks maybe,
Yep.
and I'm gonna turn it over to Heather, who's gonna talk a little bit about the elementary program.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks Leslie for coordinating all of the different presentations and all of this tonight. But I wanted to basically build on what Matt talked about, really focusing on the sixth grade music program, which the Community Foundation helped to fund, obviously, but to talk a little bit more about the broader music education strategic initiative and what we've been able to do with overall funding for the Community Foundation. So as Melissa gave a great background earlier, with the extension that we had, our goals were to really, hire the sixth grade teachers. So we have the 2 teachers at the school and be able to provide a lot deeper sixth grade music offerings that weren't available in the past. And then also to purchase musical instruments, sheet music, related supplies for Parkside. But the Education Foundation, as part of the strategic initiative, we really focused as well, providing our own funding and support for the overall music strategic initiative, which I also want to talk about to provide all of you more context about how our partnership is working together. So Leslie, if you move on to the next slide. I did want to give you a report first just on your own funding. So beyond the sixth grade that Matt talked about, we also were able to use, or the district was last year, the instrument funding for a lot of different instruments to be able to provide a variety of choices for the students. So I provided a full list on the slide so that you have that, but basically, across different types of wind or string instruments, and then also even some instruments for the elementary schools so that they could have a variety of choices. And then have in supplement to that sheet music books, reeds, and different sorts of maintenance supplies. And so all of that has been able to be used with the classes. And then on the next slide, I just talk a little bit about the elementary music program, because I think a big part of the strategic initiative overall is that there be K-8 offering that then would bridge to the high school, and so that the students could grow in their music education through their whole time in San Bruno schools. And so right now, we're able to do that. Obviously, we had the support of the Community Foundation paying for the elementary music teacher last year. That music teacher has focused on grades 2 through 5. We've retained that teacher this year with funding of the districts and commitment from the Education Foundation that we'll be able to continue working with them to ensure that post the Community Foundation's funding, we can continue having them on board. And so that's been great, having that dedicated music teacher shared across the elementary schools for grades 2 through 5.
And they're complemented by a Music for Minors program for TK, K, and 1. So even at that young level, they're able to get introduced to musical concepts and get excited by music. So it's really bridging for them and getting them ready for the music teacher and then deeper like instrument programs at Parkside. So we're really proud of the fact that we're able to have music for all grades. And then in terms of the partnership and bringing all the schools together, we are trying to do that in multiple ways as well. One thing that we're scheduled to do this year for the first time is we're working with the district on a Panther Pride Day, in which Parkside is going to be able to profile all of the offerings that they have, including music, along with other enrichment programs, and be able to invite 5th grade families on February 10th to Parkside to be able to see what Parkside will be like and what the offerings will be. And there'll be like music performances and other types of programs we'll be able to perform as well. But that'll be a great way to profile what Parkside's done, and similar to what Matt was talking about earlier with the Parkside students playing at the elementary school, but also like help the elementary school students be inspired about what it could be like at a more advanced level at Parkside, what Parkside will be like for them. And we additionally are partnering with the high school and to see if there could be a concert that we have, some sort of collaboration between elementary, middle, and high school to be able to just bring all the students together in some form across the district. So that's something else that we're working toward, but just in general, trying to continue to partner and find ways to collaborate. So finally, I just really wanted to thank you for your continued support, your partnership. The Community Foundation has been incredible in helping over a number of years with music and in so many other ways, really helping us support education in San Bruno. So thank you for all of your support, and I welcome any questions you may have later.
Good evening, my name is Jonathan Sue, and I am the Capuchino High School Music Department Music Director. And I believe I've spoken to this board previously at least 2 times, if not more, but that was all over Zoom. And so I'm thrilled to finally be in here in person. I'm very happy to make this work now that we are in that phase in the post-pandemic. I'm a 9th year teacher. I'm my 4th year at Capuchino, and I did start online during the pandemic. I know this board's work in supporting music education in San Bruno started previous to my arrival, and I know it's in its currently is in its 2nd iteration. I want to say that we are still enjoying the equipment and the resources that were furnished by your first round of funding to Capuchino in particular. I will say that when I was in the consideration process of my current position, Jesse Boys was the principal that hired me, and he took me around to all the facilities, and I was really impressed with the quality of the percussion instruments, and that did sway my decision to leave my former position and to come to here. And so we are still enjoying that equipment, and we do use that as to jump off the school year with our expected family contribution to inspire families to support our music boosters, to kind of join that legacy that you started. So thank you very much. I wanted to start with a little overview of the Capuchino Music Department. The Capuchino Music Department has taken many forms through the decades. I think one of our biggest legacies is our marching band, and many Cap alumni really are proud of the fact that the Cap band marched in the John F. Kennedy inaugural parade all those decades ago, and that is forever something that we hold on to. Since then, Capuchino has had a reputation for its marching band. Through the decades, it has, sometimes the numbers are good, sometimes the numbers are bad, or less. And it's changed, and it's taken many forms. However, one thing that has remained steadfast is its status as a municipal jewel, for San Bruno. I've met so many alumni, from the CAP Music Department, in the last 4 years I've been at CAP. Who are proud of their time spent in the CAP Music Department. And I believe I will continue to meet throughout my career. I will continue to meet alumni that that were here before me. And one of the things when I was brought on to the Cappuccino Music Department, I want to share a little bit about my philosophy. And one of the things that we're striving to do is to create a world-class program, high-quality ensembles-based the comprehensive music department. And that, there's a lot of words there, but for me and my staff, that means band, orchestra, and choir. We have some offshoots from there, but we want, my philosophy with running the music department here is to provide access and opportunities for students that they might not be able to have elsewhere. So, for example, you can play violin by yourself in your bedroom, but that doesn't mean you're in an orchestra, right? You can't fit that many people in your bedroom. You can toss a flag outside by yourself in your backyard, but that doesn't mean you're part of a marching band and color guard, right? One of the things I think about is if we didn't offer this here, a student would have to spend lots of money elsewhere. If we didn't have a high quality marching band at Cappuccino, students would have to spend $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to do a drum corps during the summer. If we didn't have orchestra at Cappuccino, a student would have to do a youth orchestra, and that costs, with those tuitions, it can be costly. Some families can handle those costs, and we welcome, collaboration with the private music programs outside of the school, but not everyone can. And so my mission is to provide those opportunities for the students that might not be able to be in a youth orchestra or a private youth choir or a private youth band. We do have some offshoots, including our jazz band, our indoor percussion, our winter guard. Cappuccino being an IB school, we also do offer IB music. We offer 4 concerts a year. Our winter and our spring concerts are kind of our big events. This year being the farthest we've been away from the pandemic, we finally reinstated our fall showcase concert. And we also have a pops concert, which is kind of a departure from our traditional band orchestra choir concert. Students can audition to sing a solo, maybe do a duet, a lot more pop music involved there. We play at all our football games, which this year has been quite exciting, given the success of the Cappuccino football team, Go Mustangs. And we participate in a lot of community events. Our choir last year sang at the Veterans Day ceremony at the Golden Gate National Cemetery right here in our backyard. Our band was invited to perform at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom up in Vallejo for the same thing, Veterans Day. And then we were also part of the Lunar New Year Day celebration in Millbrae this past year. And then finally, one of the things I think is most important is we participate in adjudicated festivals where we receive verbal and written feedback from professional judges, as well as rankings and scores. Sometimes they're competitions, sometimes they're just rankings and scores. I think it's a validation for our students' hard work, and those professional comments that we get from judges are very important in our students' development. I have in my slides just an overview of every class. So the first slide is our chamber singers. Jesse Boyce, the principal that hired me, he had it in his heart. Band and orchestra were pretty popular, but the chamber singers class the choir class was just a single class, and he really had it in his heart that we built this class. We're still in the process of building it. They are a small choir, but they don't sound like a small choir. They sing, we have lots of events for them. As I mentioned previously, they recently sang at the Golden Gate National Cemetery for Veterans Day. We've also been doing a couple of collaboration concerts with some big name choral programs, Mountain View High School, Amador Valley High School, Los Altos High School. And so those kids have seen lots of performances on campus and off campus. Our next slide is our string and chamber orchestra. String orchestra is our 9th grade group, freshman orchestra. Nod toward my middle school, elementary school colleagues, because that group has seen tremendous improvement from year to year. Every year I've been at Cappuccino. The chamber orchestra is 10th and 12th grade. Last year, we hosted a CMEA festival at Cappuccino. CMEA stands for California Music Educators Association. That's kind of our official music ed association. And they host these festivals that are kind of, our official state festivals, if you will. And we host them at different sites around the Bay Area. I offered our beautiful Performing Arts Center to host the festival. And so we had groups from Mills High School, we had groups from Burlingame High School, groups from some schools in San Francisco, all around come to CAP in order for an opportunity to perform in our beautiful theater, in addition to getting comments from judges. Ratings and scores are not the only thing that we hang our hats on, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that our chamber orchestra was the only group out of 10, 11, 12 different groups that day that received the coveted unanimous superior ranking, which means all 4 judges gave the highest ranking. We had some other schools that were pretty close. Our chamber orchestra was the only one. That allowed us to be eligible for an application to the next point, which is CMEA State. Same slide, but CMEA State. CMEA State is the state level CMEA festival. There's one festival that's held every year. This year it's being held in Southern California. In order to apply, even just to audition, even just to send in an audition recording, you have to have had a unanimous superior, which we did. And so we sent in our application recordings, and we were the only Bay Area school to have been selected to perform at the 2024 CMEA State Band and Orchestra Festival this year in Southern California. So in a little bit, I'm going to talk about our travel opportunities. This is one of them. And so we're pretty proud of that. And we have a lot of thanks to our orchestra from last year for their hard work. Our next slide is our marching band and color guard, and that includes our concert and symphonic bands. Concert band is 9th grade band, symphonic band is 10th and 12th. When I started at CAP, when I first took over, there was only one band class for all 9th through 12th graders. That's akin to shoving algebra, geometry, trigonometry, and calculus students all in one class. It's not effective. And I said that to the principal. I said, look, I understand if this is what if I'm walking into, but I don't intend for it to stay this way. And I would like, if you want someone that just only have one band class, I did say, are you sure you want to hire me? Pretty gutsy. Because of the efforts of our achievements and the efforts of my colleagues at the middle school, we have been able to expand that to 2 band classes. Highly important for differentiation, highly important for the middle school to have 6th grade music, 7th grade music, and 8th grade music. I know for a while, 7th and 8th grade combined because of numbers in the pandemic. That eventually does need to be 6th grade is different curriculum than 7th grade is different curriculum than 8th grade. And so same thing here, 9th grade. Our goals eventually, not sure how we're going to make this happen, but eventually we're hopefully going to have 3 band classes, maybe 3 orchestra classes. we transitioned from a street-only parade band to a fully fledged competitive field show band in fall of 2022. This was something, I thought, we made ourselves a full-time field show band, that we would get more buy-in, we would get more commitment from students, and I'm proud to say, that has happened. I had to leave rehearsal to come and present to you. They're still going, with their coaches, and so the students are working very hard. Their first ever competition, they got first place in their ranking 2A, which is pretty awesome. This past 2 weekends ago, we were in Gilroy, and they got 4th overall. They got 2nd in music in the specific category of music, beating out some of the higher level bands in that category. So that makes me very happy because I teach them music, and so they're now working on making sure their visual scores go out there as well. So. Next, we have indoor percussion. Indoor percussion is also known as winter percussion. This is after the fall marching season. This is an extracurricular. My friend Aaron Bott, he's our percussion director, and I brought him on, and he completely minted the indoor percussion from scratch. Their first year was 2022, excuse me, and they were last place that season, which is normal for starting off. This past year, 2022-23, their rankings, you can see, shot up. One of the things I used to hear kids say was, "Oh, that school beat us because they're a rich school." And while that's true that there's different levels of resources and, higher and lower, we don't allow our kids to say that. We don't teach that, because another school has resources, they're definitely going to be better than you. And this year, our indoor percussion did place higher than some private schools, public schools in more affluent areas. And so that lesson of hard work, being able to take feedback, being able to just compete with yourself first, it really shows in the results. And so very, very proud of the indoor percussion. Its counterpart is the Winter Guard. And our Winter Guard, we've had a Winter Guard for a very long time. We've had a couple of director changes with the Winter Guard. If you don't know what the Guard is, for a marching band, you have the instrumentalists playing a wind instrument, banging the drum, maybe they're in the front playing a marimba or a xylophone. And then you have the Guard. The Guard deals with 3 different types of equipment. They have the flags that they toss in the air. They don't just wave, but they toss in the air and they hopefully catch them. That's kind of the thing we try to teach them about. And then they also have rifles and sabers that they also spin and toss, and it's very athletic. And so very proud of our Winter Guard. In 2022, they received the Most Improved Award at their championships. Our indoor percussion received the growth last year, and so just things are going up and up with those 2 particular things. And those happen in the gym. Our next slide is our jazz band, which does take place after marching season. A lot of students who will play their main instrument or or sometimes even pick up a secondary instrument to play jazz. We have most other schools in my district have jazz band actually as a class. We have it as an extracurricular currently. As our program continues to grow, having jazz band as a class to just kind of be aligned with the other high schools in my district would be one of our goals. That picture on the bottom right, the power went out. And so you can see our building has nice, beautiful windows, and so they were very. Normally I'd just say let's just go home. It's okay. I think it was right before performance, and so their dedication shows. Everyone I think was on campus. I think even the sports had all left, and we were still there rehearsing. So, and let's see. All right, so. Cappuccino Music Department received a total of $20,000 in our second round of funding for the music ed strategic initiative. And we received it distributed over 2 years, so 10,000 one year and 10,000 this year. We received the last 10,000 this year. B funds were applied to transportation costs as our music department restarted trips. It was a little slow. We first came back onto campus in the spring of 2021, but a lot of things like field trips and, there was a lot of regulations about whether kids could be on buses or not. And so a lot of things had not restarted. And one of the things I want to thank the board for is that funding in a very dire time when community and student engagement dipped all across the board, in athletics and many other parts of our school. But in music, especially with the director transition, me not being their former director, a lot of engagement did dip. And with that dip comes a dip in music boosters engagement. I'm not even necessarily talking about funds, but just getting parent volunteers. My hypothesis, which has proved to be correct, was when I was trying to wrangle, people to sign up to be music booster positions, I said, look, I have faith that as we start the field show marching, and as kids are more committed, the parents will follow too, and that has proven to be the case. But I want to thank, it is not wiped from my memory, your support, your steadfast support through that kind of difficult time. Transportation costs, a bus can go anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 for a day, in just one bus. My admin assistant, Miss Sammy Pashner, she has been the queen of, if we only have to take, let's say 20 kids, to use those white district vans that are free for the time being. And so, but then sometimes when we need to take the whole group somewhere, we do need to pay. And that money immediately went to transportation costs. Some of our trips include a San Francisco Symphony open rehearsal, a myriad of festivals and band reviews, and then a couple of community events such as the Veterans Day, Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. This year, we are planning 2 Southern California tours, one for the band and choir in April, and the other one for the orchestra for CVA State. Originally, I wanted to just do one trip because it's not a vacation for me. I keep telling the kids that they think it's a vacation for me. It's not a vacation for me. I take my own vacations. But because the orchestra had this big success with their application, that's going to be a separate trip and a separate trip. And so this is the first time in my tenure at CAP where we are taking students on an overnight trip. The last couple of years have had some engagement problems as well as behavioral problems. And so we are now at the point where the trust has been regained, the students are committed, the students know what the expected behavior is when you're on a trip, whether it's a local trip or an overnight trip. And so we're excited for those trips in April. I also want to thank this board for your support to our elementary and middle school neighbors. Before coming to Cappuccino, I was the head of the orchestra department at Kennedy Middle School in Cupertino. And so when you're a middle school director, you create your own destiny. If they can't play by 8th grade, that's your fault. You gotta look in the mirror. But here at the high school, I'm very dependent on the success of the middle school program. We love sending our kids over to Parkside to help out during concerts. Part of that is creating a culture of like, I gotta care about the community, and it's not just about me performing, but we have service projects connected to all of our concerts and service projects connected to their concerts as well. And so thank you for that investment. Having 2 middle school teachers is highly important. Band and orchestra are very different beasts. I'm a rare bird in that I've done all of them, but to have a specialist doing orchestra only, having a specialist doing band only, That aligns with other states other than California where music education does operate at a higher level. And so that is a rare thing. Like our superintendent said, most middle schools just have the one lonely band and the music teacher, the one lonely person. And so having two people is highly important, and that could not have happened without your support. That was what got me to come to Cappuccino. Jesse Boyce did tell me that there was like a successful music program that did immediately change after I accepted the job, and there was a little bit of a transition period. I'm really glad to see that bounce back. So lots of gratitude to this board and support for music in San Bruno.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Matt Duffy, Heather Lata, and Jonathan Shu for the report. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I was just curious, what's the size of that field band? Like how many students? And are you able to accept every student that is interested?
We do accept every student that's interested, even students that somehow did not have an opportunity to do music before. We accept every student. Right now, we're at 60. And that's a combination of the freshman band and the upper class band. We look at the projections from my middle school colleagues for the coming years is going to be higher, and so that's nice. Yeah.
Yes, I just have a comment. Congratulations on your program and your student successes. Your passion and commitment are evident, and it's really exciting having heard from all of you to see what the future holds for San Bruno's children. So yeah, very happy to work with all of you.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a comment, which isn't directly related to music, but I understand maybe Heather could tell us about an event that's upcoming at Skyline College.
Sure, Jim. I love that entree. So on Saturday, November 18th, we have an upcoming gala for the San Bruno Education Foundation. And so I was planning to, but forgot to mention earlier as part of this presentation. I can leave this here with all of you, or maybe send it to Leslie and she could pass it on to all the board members. But I did also, for anyone listening at home, want you to know that we do have this casino night coming up. It'll be a really fun night. The ticket sales go towards all of our support for the school. But yes, there'll be a casino night and a band, and it'll be a lot of fun and a great way just to show the support for the community and our students. So thank you so much, Jim. And if anyone at home is interested, you can go to San Bruno Education Foundation's website, sbefkids.org, and the ticket sales should prominently be on the website. So thank you.
Just again, congratulations on all of your music programs. I'm so glad that we're able to continue to support such a needed program for our students. I think opportunities and just the creative arts is really important to cultivating really strong leaders in the future. So thank you for all the work that you all do. Okay, I think that's it for that item. Are there any questions from the public?
There are no questions online.
Great, thank you. We'll move on now to item C, receive report on the San Bruno Park School District School Field Trip Grant from San Bruno Park School District. In October of 2022, the board approved a $35,000 grant to the San Bruno Park School District to support field trips and on-campus assemblies in the 22-23 school year. The grant reflected the foundation's belief in the value of field trips for San Bruno students, especially after more than 2 years of the pandemic, and offered some much needed financial relief to the school's parent-teacher organizations, which are often relied upon to fund these types of opportunities. Under the grant, $5,000 was earmarked to support activities at each of the 5 elementary schools and $10,000 to support activities at Parkside Intermediate School. Over the summer, the school district informed staff that the schools had not expended all of the grant funds during the 22-23 school year and requested an extension to be able to use the remaining funds in the 23-24 school year. This fall, the foundation and the school district executed an amendment to the grant agreement that one, extends the end of the grant period to June 30th, 24. B, amends the grant purpose to allow for funds to be spent through the 23-24 school year. And C, amends the grant purpose to give the school district the discretion to distribute any remaining funds designated for Rollingwood Elementary School, which closed in June of 2023, after the 22-23 school year to any other district school. I'd like to again invite Superintendent Duffy back to the podium to give us an update on how the schools are using the grant funds.
Thanks for having me back. And thank you so much for this grant for a variety of reasons, not obviously just for the money itself, but coming out of the pandemic, and I think generally for our schools, it just continues to help everybody exercise and re-exercise this muscle of like, we need to get out of the building and we need to go see things and we need to do things and we need to have experiences for our students. So the fact that folks know like, hey, there's money in the account for you just makes a big difference because a lot of times there is a big scramble. So big thank you. There's a variety of pictures throughout the slides, and we can move the slide forward. So again, 35,000 granted for the trips. We used about 15,000 last year, with about 20,000 being carried over. So thank you for allowing us to carry those over. During the pandemic and more recently in the state, we've been given lots of tiny little pots of one-time money, which is both great and frustrating. And so last year we used a little bit of those pots to spend some things out that we needed to, and we're able to save some of this field trip money. So again, we're really excited about that. So that's just the basics of the funding. So we took a total of 67 trips last year. The great majority, as Jonathan was talking about for the high school, go to the buses. The buses are the big cost. Usually registration or admissions to places don't cost too much, but it really is the buses. And so you can see a lot of the highlights here. All of these were paid for out of foundation dollars. Lots of great places that students are going to. I do want to say just a note about outdoor education. So in this county, all fifth graders go on a 5-day outdoor education overnight. And I was actually told recently that that started in San Bruno by a set of San Bruno educators many years ago. But this now costs $500+ per family. And we're working kind of in a separate strategy about how we can make that trip affordable for all of our students. So a number of our schools put money towards outdoor education. And so even though that's an existing trip that we've been doing and maybe not a new experience, it is a new experience for a lot of kids who don't have the means, who wouldn't be able to afford that. And it's our goal to make sure every kid goes who wants to go and whose family wants to go. So a good portion was put towards outdoor education, and it's made a big difference. And that continues to be a big push from our community, which is like, how do we get everybody there who wants to go there? None of our kids should get excluded from that pretty cool experience. So that's at the top of the list there on outdoor education. And then in the next slide, this year, we've just taken 5 field trips so far, with another 22 scheduled, and new ones are coming in every day and getting scheduled. And you see some of the places that we're going to. And I just wanted to mention that the picture right there is we're responsible for educating students as young as 3 years old in our district, and even 3-year-olds who have special needs. And so we have a class across from the district office in the other building there that's a special needs preschool class. And we're trying very much to mainstream them and include them with the rest of the preschool students where we can. And this was taking them out on a trip just the other day. And then I wanted to mention, I don't know that we're putting community foundation funds to that, but just worth noting that the Narita exchange program that has historically existed in the district is back. And we'll be hosting students and families from Narita in March and then going in July. So that's very exciting. And then another trip that we are trying to sort of put a stronger equity lens onto is our 8th grade trip to Washington, DC. That's a trip that costs almost $3,000. And so again, if you can afford it, you go. We haven't traditionally had really strong systems and structures to allow students who want to go on that, who don't have money to do it, to go. So we're also working separately with the Education Foundation and our folks at Parkside to think through like, how much can we give to that trip so we can ensure some of our students who wouldn't normally have that opportunity can go. So thought it's worth mentioning just a little bit about Narita and the DC trip as some other things going on and other kind of equity strategies for us as well. And I think it's not lost on you, but worth articulating the impact of these trips, right? I mean, they're just truly memorable marks for our students. I love being in schools when they're about to leave or they're coming back and the students are just super excited. And as I said earlier, these funds just really push us to make sure we're getting outside of the building and lead to this less scrambling, because we can, in school districts where we don't have a lot of money, we can get into these scrambles of how do we find this money, we want to do this, and this just helps give a little bit more calm. And we've spread the trips out across all the schools. So again, thank you so much.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board? Comments? No? Any questions from the public? No online questions. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For your support. Okay, we will transition over to item D. Receive update on district initiative from the San Bruno Park School District. I wonder who that is. And adopt resolution creating and appointing members to the ad hoc committee on the San Bruno Park School District Strategic Initiative. Superintendent Duffy has one more report for us tonight. Now he's going to give us an update on the district and an overview of key district initiatives and capital projects, including some related to STEM initiatives at the elementary schools and at Parkside, and the athletic fields, which the foundation may have an interest in supporting. After his presentation, the board will consider a resolution to create a new ad hoc committee on the San Bruno Park School District strategic initiatives to explore opportunities for the foundation to support some of the school district's priority activities. Under the resolution, board member Irving Torres would chair the committee, and Secretary Raul Gomez and board member Supriya Perry would serve as committee members. If the board adopts the resolution creating this committee, such action would not permit the foundation to support any projects financially if the committee were to eventually propose one or more strategic grants. The board would need to take separate action to consider such proposals. And it's back to you, Superintendent.
Well, thank you, and thanks again for giving us this opportunity, and I appreciate actually being able to do this all at one time. I do appreciate it. And thank you so much for considering a deeper investment in the district and the committee that you're thinking of putting together. It certainly means a lot to us. So yeah, we've gone kind of deep on music and field trips, but just to sort of back up and give you a broader overview of what we're up to in the district. With the school board, we've set out to really find success around these 5 key areas. And they're pretty much the same last year and this year. So we're trying not to flip flop things and start one and then start the other, but just stay and dig in to a number of items. And they've been really strengthening Parkside Middle School. Last year, actually, the language was a little bit different. It was stabilize and strengthen Parkside. And we feel like we have a ton of stability now. And now it's just how do we grow the school even stronger? Implement high quality support for English learners, ensure engaging and inclusive instruction. And that's really emerging as the #1 thing we want to do. And that is who we are at the core of the school district, is making sure that the instruction that happens every day for our students is engaging and everyone feels and is included. Providing consistent community communication, and that's both between classrooms, schools, district, on lots of different levels. And then continue to do some work internally on our systems, processes, and culture. So that's those are sort of big guiding 5 goals, if you want to call them that, but really sort of focus areas for our work. So we've had a set of current initiatives, and you know, these are really up and running, and they are a credit to the many people who have come before me. And now me and the team that I am with get to sort of take hold and try to help implement those as well. Those are music education. We've talked about that tonight. That's obviously been a big initiative, and we feel like that's in a very good place. And we're also fortunate that there is a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of new arts funding from the state through Proposition 28 that will give us some ongoing money to support the arts. A huge initiative around staff recruitment and retention, especially right now when there's such a teacher and staffing shortage in California. That's a deep focus for us. And we are fully staffed this year. You know, so outside of somebody who may need to leave for this or that during the year, all our positions, whether they're certificated or classified, classroom or support, are staffed, and that's makes a big difference for us. Really deepening our focus on our English learners. So students who are still classified as English learner, we are trying to redesignate them so that they are academically proficient in English. And, you know, we have over 1/3 of the students in the district are English learners. And that's a big number. And that's a number that, you know, we want to support. And that could be students who are newcomers and just arriving to the country versus students who have not mastered the domains of proficient English for, you know, 10 years. So we have work to do on both ends. We're super psyched though about the Allen campus. It's finished. I mean, it's never finished, but it's like, it's pretty much finished. And it looks beautiful, and it is very beautiful, and it's got some amazing features. The outside areas are just amazing for the students. The multi-purpose room is a really beautiful space, and it's now our go-to for all of our staff meetings. So it's a really great space, and I'm happy to have been part of these last couple of years. And then we're really going through this Parkside refresh, and I sort of talked about that a little bit with like the goal. So, you know, that's everything about the school, is its aesthetics, it's how it looks, it's how we staff it. For example, this year we added 2 dean of student positions. We had previously just the principal and assistant principal, and that's it. And having been a former middle school principal, just having more folks on the team, having some dedicated folks to really work with the students so the administrators can work with the teachers and work on some of the other areas of the school, it's made a big difference. So we're continuing to look for every dollar we can find to invest in all our schools, but really, you know, make a difference. It's our only middle school, right? So it's got to be great. So we're excited. So we feel like these are really up and running and running well. And one of the things Leslie asked me was like, okay, sort of what's next? Where do you want to really deepen your investments? And so there's three kind of big things we're thinking about. We're thinking about STEAM, and I guess we'll use STEAM and STEM a little bit interchangeably here, but STEAM labs, staffing and programming for all elementary schools. So the Allen School was built with a dedicated STEAM lab. And so it's totally different than our other schools. So the room looks different. It's got huge lab tables. It's got a roll-up garage door so you can kind of go in to out. And we have a dedicated STEAM teacher. So all the kids through the whole school come in for programming, for curriculum that takes place all year. They do STEAM events for parents. So it's a really special thing. And so that is something we would love to do at all of our schools. So that's gonna involve some infrastructure, some staffing, and some programming. So with the Ed Foundation, we've been talking a lot about how do we get there. That's really at the elementary schools. The second big thing we're talking about are the playing fields at our schools. We recently had a facilities study session, and this item has really been elevated. We talked about it last year, and it was sort of like, okay, that's really important. But I think this year, with just more discussion about it, more ideas about it, I think our board, our community wants to see us do something with our fields. They're in a terrible state of disrepair at all of our schools, and we've really prioritized Parkside and John Muir as the first two that we would really like to take care of. We've done a lot of work meeting with designers, contractors, talking about what it would cost, what's the difference between turf or synthetic turf and real turf. And this is just a little snapshot of the tiniest change we made inside of the Parkside quad. And this was this junky dirt patch, right, that was filled with gopher holes. And so we put the turf in here, and it's got two, and like kids hang out, they sit out there, it feels like this sort of college campus quad, and it's just really changed the atmosphere. And that's obviously inside, but we really know that the physical plant, the aesthetics make a big difference. And I think what's cool about this idea is it's really a community-based idea, because we know these fields, we want to open them up for community use for many things. And then the last thing we're thinking about deeply is our STEAM wing at Parkside. So if you've been in the Parkside school, that far building that you see in this picture is our current science wing. And it's really not in good shape, it's falling apart. And we're talking about how could we possibly use remaining funds from our bond that we have. We're really waiting to see where we land with the close of this sale of our Engvall property where the golf driving range is. And how will this get prioritized? But having gone to YouTube this morning and thinking through like, wow, these are amazing buildings and what we could do to create a space where we have science, where we have technology, where we have our arts, where we have our music studios, is something we're going to dive into already, even without figuring out all the funding. We want to go through at least a pre-design process, not with architects yet, but just together internally. What do we really want from this space? Because there's lots of competing ideas, obviously. But for us, that's sort of the final part of getting Parkside where it needs to be. So we're thinking a lot about these STEAM labs across the elementaries, the fields and green spaces, and the Parkside STEAM wing. So those are three big ones that we're looking at. I can't remember if there was another slide. Oh, there were slides for me to talk about each of these. I guess I just did. So these are some of the kids at Allen who are currently in the STEAM lab, and that's a picture from the lab. and they're doing just really cool projects. And something I forgot to mention is that we have a STEAM leads, teacher leadership community of practice. So just to kind of deepen this investment and connection to STEAM, every school has a STEAM lead, and they come together on a monthly basis as a community of practice, just to dig into what are we doing, what's our curriculum, what's best practice. You know, a lot of focus on science within that. And for elementary teachers, your basic elementary teacher, it's really hard to get to good STEAM instruction weekly when you're trying to do all of the other subjects. So having this dedicated space and teacher is pretty cool. Playing fields, I've talked about, this is a totally finished, but almost finished picture of the Allen Elementary field. So that is Allen. The kids are out there every day on it, makes a huge difference. And Parkside Science Wing, obviously I've talked about that. But I talked about the pre-design group, just because we have so many ideas, from industrial art spaces to maker spaces to library spaces. What is it all gonna kind of look like? And this is a picture that's a picture from our Lego robotics competition that was across all of our elementary schools, and it's inside of the new Allen multi-purpose room, which is a really pretty space. And cost estimates, I thought I'd just put them up there. We think to get the STEAM labs going across the district, it's about $1 million initial investment in terms of building all of the spaces, and then about $500,000 annually to pay for those specified teachers, materials, etc. The fields, obviously a deeper investment. We're just talking about Parkside and John Muir is about an $8 to $14 million project for design and installation across those two. Obviously, they're big spaces. That price range could include the difference between synthetic turf and natural turf, how much you want to do, if you want to do lights, you know, all of that. And it's about $1 million to $2 million for maintenance over the next 10 to 12 years. So it's very different. With synthetic turf, you're going to keep a whole bunch of money that you're going to then invest in 10 or 12 years for replacement. Whereas the grass, you're doing upfront, the real grass, much more investing each year because it takes more annual maintenance. And we think the Parkside STEAM Wing building will be about a $40 to $60 million project based on right now at least $2,000 a square foot construction cost for school buildings. So that just wanted to share that. And that's from our preliminary work. And then just again, thank you very much. This is a great picture, has nothing to do with this presentation, but this is our third graders at Allen did a whole unit on creating businesses and business plans. And this was their sale day. And I really wanted tie-dye socks, but they were sold out. So going back this year. So there's a lot of good things happening across our district. So again, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public? None online. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. May I call for a motion to adopt a resolution creating and appointing members to the ad hoc committee on the San Bruno Park School District Strategic Initiatives?
So, second.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Secretary Lewis.
Thank you. Board Member Melinda Wong.
Aye.
Board Member Irving Torres. Aye. Board Member Supriya Perry,
Aye.
Treasurer Pat Glynn,
Aye.
I am an aye, Raul Gomez, Vice President Jim Roy,
Aye.
and President Melissa Natani Jones.
Aye.
All ayes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to item E, receive report on other programs, community grants fund, Crestmore scholarship and other strategic grants. I'll turn that over to Executive Director Leslie Haney.
Thank you.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I'm not gonna cover everything that was in the written report. I just want to highlight a couple things. On the community grants fund, we are in the midst of the evaluation process. This is we received 48 applications, which is in the range of what we typically receive. Which gives us a very robust and competitive applicant pool. A lot of repeat applicants as well as a number of new first-time applicants as well that learned about our opportunity. The applications are currently in the second stage of review. A panel of 13 community members are now reading and rating the applications. That panel will meet later on in November and come up with the recommended slate that will be presented to the board at the December meeting. And we again have the $100,000 donation from YouTube and Google.org, which will enable us to give a total of $300,000 in December. And that's always a great meeting that you definitely do not want to miss. On the Christmas scholarship, the 2024 cycle will launch in December, as it always does. When we will have the online application ready to go, and we'll be communicating with all the high schools and community colleges. We are not making any significant changes to the program this year. It'll be fairly similar to how it's run in previous years. We will have virtual and in-person workshops for for scholarship applicants. And the application deadline will be Tuesday, March 5th, which is the normal time. With regard to our strategic grants, just a couple things to note on the Recreation and Aquatic Center. In mid-October, we received the latest report for the rock construction grant, which is the big one. From the city, we made a grant payment of $1.4 million. And yesterday we received quarterly grant reports for the other two still active grants. City compliance review and temporary facilities, very relatively small request totaling about $18,000. We will make those payments next week. We've now paid out for the construction grant, the entire original construction grant amount of about $40.5 million. So on that big one, all that actually remains now is the construction contingency allowance that we approved this past year of $1.5 million. Again, that's only if they need it, which it now appears like they are going to be needed, or at least a decent portion of it. And, you know, we have now paid out the vast majority of the RAC grants. There still is a couple of about 3 million, 3 or 4 million left, but we're getting down to the end of the grant payments. At this point, it looks like the RAC will be completed at some point in 2024, not likely by the end of the calendar year. In large part due to, you know, some of the delays early on in the year with the weather, as well as issues with just getting the building powered and then working out timelines with PG&E. But the city is very diligently in communication with PG&E, trying to make it move forward as expeditiously as possible, but at the same time, we want to make sure the building is done right and is the, you know, world-class building that we want it to be. So we don't want them to cut corners either. We will receive a full quarterly RAC report from the city at the December meeting, so you will get more information at that time. In addition to the RAC and the December board meeting, we will also get reports from the city on the Centennial Plaza project as well as Community Day. So we'll be getting, just like we got from the school district this time, a whole series of reports. The city manager will be here at the next meeting, giving us another set of big reports. For the Centennial Plaza grant that also they're reporting quarterly and we're making payments. So we just received their most recent, report, and we will make a grant payment of about $36,000 on that next week. And so that's my report on our other programs.
Thank you, Leslie. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Any questions from the public?
Do not appear to be any online.
Okay. All right, and thank you for that. We're going to move to item F. Discuss upcoming officer election for 2024 term. Under our officer elections process, we agendize the subject of officer elections prior to taking nominations and holding the election to allow for board discussion on this topic. I'll open the floor up to any comments from any colleagues who would like to speak. Are there any discussion items, anyone's? Are there any questions from the public regarding this item?
There are none online.
Okay. All right, so then we're gonna move into G, elect officers for 2024 president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. The foundation's bylaws call for the annual election of president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer, whose terms start on January 1st. In 2016, the board adopted principles and processes which govern the foundation's election of officers. Under this process, officer elections are held no later than the board's regular November meeting. So that per the bylaws, the San Bernardino City Council can consider and approve the officers by December 31st. Following the adopted process, I will be calling the nominations in following order: president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. Is there any discussions before I call for nominations? Any questions from the public?
There are no questions on.
Okay. So I will begin. I call for nominations for president.
I would like to nominate Melissa Natani Jones for president.
We need a second.
Second.
Excellent. Secretary Gomez,
Board member Belinda Wong.
Aye.
Board member Irving Torres. Aye. Board member Supriya Perry.
Aye.
Treasurer Pac Lynn.
Aye.
Secretary Raul Gomez is an aye. Vice President Jim Roy. Aye. And President Melissa Natani Jones.
aye. All right. Thank you so much. I'll call for nominations for vice president.
I would like to nominate, Jim Nguyen for, vice president. Second.
Okay, thank you. Secretary Gomez?
Board member Belinda Wong.
Aye.
Board member Irving Torres. Aye. Board member Supriya Perry.
Aye.
Treasurer Pac Lynn.
Aye.
Secretary Raul Gomez is an aye. Vice President Jim Roy.
Sure, aye.
President Melissa Natani Jones.
Yes, yes. Thank you. I call for nominations for secretary.
To the chair, I'd like to nominate Raul Gomez for secretary.
I second.
Excellent, thank you.
Second.
Supriya. Secretary Gomez?
Board member Belinda Wong.
Aye.
Board member Irving Torres. Aye. Board member Supriya Perry.
Aye.
Treasurer Pac Lynn.
Aye.
Raul Gomez is says it. Vice President Jim Roy.
Aye.
And President Melissa Natani Jones.
Aye,
All ayes.
thank you. Then I'll call for nominations for treasurer, and I would like to nominate, Pat Lynn for treasurer for this term.
Second.
And now I'll turn it over to Secretary Gomez.
Thank you. Board member Belinda Wong.
Aye.
Board member Irving Torres. Aye. Board member Supriya Perry.
Aye.
Treasurer Pac Lynn.
Aye.
Secretary Raul Gomez is an aye. Vice President Jim Roy.
Aye.
President Melissa Natani Jones.
Aye. Okay, the 2024 foundation officers are Melissa Natana Jones, President, Jim Ruane, Vice President, Raul Gomez, Secretary, and Pat Lynn as Treasurer. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Per the bylaw, the San Bernardino City Council will consider approving our slate of elected officers at an upcoming meeting, most likely the December 12th meeting. Okay. Now we'll move over into 8 study sessions, strategic planning discussion on post-RAC program and investment strategy. A review of strategic plan 2.0. In 2021, in anticipation for the completion of the 50 million, now 51.5 million RAC grants, the board went through a 3-step strategic planning process. It has been more than 2 years since that process, 2 years of market volatility, and now that all RAC grants are likely to be paid out in the current fiscal year, the board will revisit strategic plan 2.0 in light of the current circumstances in San Bernardino and a more accurate projection of the foundation's assets. Tonight's session will primarily be a recap of the 2021 strategic planning process as a refresher for the 3 board members who participated in that process and to educate the 4 board members who joined the board since then. This session will set the stage for the board's strategic planning deliberations in 2024. We will have 2 presentations. First, Leslie will walk us through the strategic plan 2.0 and the thinking behind it. Then Kristen Sun of Sandhill Global Advisors will do a refresher on the endowments. Leslie?
Great, thank you. So I've got a lot of slides, but we're gonna go through them pretty quickly. The beginning ones should just be things you already know, but I kind of wanted to put it all together so we have the nice flow from the beginning. And then I will turn it over to Kristen, who will walk us back through sort of quasi endowments, what they mean, how they work, and sort of the options that will be before the board. So quick timeline. We were formed, we got the money, we created the board, the council created the board and appointed the board. We got our 501c3 status. I retired. You know, we did our first community listening campaign, and that led to the development of all of our major policies. We launched our programs, and then 2 years ago in 2021, we did sort of a refresh, went back out to the community and did a strategic planning process this is sort of an addendum to. Just a refresher on our purpose, vision, and mission statements. The key thing is that it's pretty broad, and it's, you know, we're about investing in the San Bernardino community broadly for the long term, without a lot of external sort of constraints, either in the way we were founded or in sort of our founding documents. As I said, we had our initial community listening campaign in 2015, which then led us to develop our focus areas, and that really informed our program and investment strategies, which have really guided us these past 8 years or so. On the investment strategy side, just a quick refresher. You know, when I came on board, and I think before the community listening campaign, we had conducted that, the board was really leaning towards treat this like an endowment and live off of the investment income. $70 million, you could spin off 3 to 5 million a year and live on in perpetuity. But what we heard loud and clear from the community was we heard a lot of community needs, but the thing we heard most loudly was the need for new community facilities and investing in some major capital projects, which we really couldn't do with $3 to $5 million of payout a year. So that caused the board to really think more creatively about how to best use the $70 million. And we came up with the help of our friends at Sandhill with this strategy of having about 55 million set aside for operating expenses, smaller projects, and bigger strategic projects, including at least 1 community facility project. And then that was about 55 of the original 70 million, 15 million, treat that as an endowment, with that sort of having an endowment long-term investment strategy. And also thinking that that could potentially sustain us over the long term with growth over time. With the advice of Sandhill, we actually broke down sort of the strategic side into two chunks. We have strategic, which is a more moderately conservative fund, where those funds to be spent over at that point the sort of next 6 to 9 years, and the timing actually ended up working out almost exactly. But also creating a liquidity pool, which would pool money from both quasi endowment and strategic for what we needed to use in the short term, like in the next year to 2 years, and that money would be liquid and ready to be spent. This strategy and structure has really served us well. I think, you know, the investment committee, we talk about that every quarter when the investment committee meets, that this structure has really served us well. And may need some tinkering now that we head into the next phase of the foundation, but I think it's really a credit to the original thinking and the advice we got from Sandhill and their guidance up till now that this has really worked well for the foundation and got us both in position to fund a major project of 51.5 million, do a host of other amazing things over the last 8 years. As well as have, I think our value added has been in the sort of 17, 18, depends on where the market is on a given day, million, you know, in addition to the original 70 million. So that has really served us well. This is where we started and where we are now, where we were at the end of September. We just ended October, so the October numbers aren't all finalized yet. But you can see at the end of September, we were a little over 30 million still in the bank with about 3.7 million still already committed to the RAC payments. But still with a healthy balance. The total net assets at the end of September, accounting for all of our committed scholarships and grants, right? Our scholarships are paid out over 5 years. Some of our grants are multi-year, including the RAC grants. So if you take out those commitments already, our total net assets at the end of September was a little over 26 million. So that's good. On the program side, our program strategy, we created what we call the program strategy framework, which included our guiding principles. Won't go through them all. You've all got them in the documents, but you know, talks about how we want to benefit the entire community, be inclusive and equitable in the way we distribute money, being transparent in what we do, trying to use our resources effectively and cost effectively. See ourselves as a partner and a convener with other organizations in San Bruno, and to encourage philanthropy throughout the community. Also, the last rule I think is really important and ended up being very valuable, which was to remain flexible in terms of responding to community needs, which we needed to do during the pandemic and really pivot at that time, given sort of what was happening in our world. Funding criteria, our strategy document also includes sort of what we fund, which is program project support, capital project support, as well as capacity building, and what we don't fund, including existing deficits, restricted endowments, lobbying, political activity, and religious activity. Eligible funding recipients are very much guided by our status as a supporting organization. That's how we get our 501c3 public charity status. So it's other tax exempt organizations, 501c3 public charities, governmental entities, and individuals only when it's one of our own programs like the scholarships, which we, you know, created very specific criteria and run a very organized selection process for. Part of our funding criteria were also the focus areas we articulated coming out of the original community listening campaign. It's a broad list, pretty much anything that's, you know, benefiting the community can easily fit into one of those categories. program strategy also had a 3-bucket approach. The first bucket being programs we would run like a scholarship, then responsive grant making, which is where we're responding to what other organizations are already doing and needs that they have identified, as well as our biggest bucket, which is strategic grant making, where we identify key community needs, seek out partners best equipped to help us meet those needs, and then make significant contributions and investments in those areas. So over the past, I guess 8 years now, we've given $1.2 million in Christmas scholarships to 81 students. Community grants, we've awarded exactly $2 million. There'll be another $300,000 in a month to 160 programs and projects in our community. We've also added in recent years off-cycle grants. It's basically an offshoot of community grants, so that there's a little bit of flexibility if a appropriate opportunity that doesn't fit the typical community grant cycle comes before us. We've given out 5 of those grants, never larger than 10,000, including the kiosk that was used to commemorate as a sort of online exhibit commemorating the gas pipeline explosion. That piece of equipment is, I believe, supposed to go into the rack when it is completed. Of course, our biggest strategic grant, as you know, is for the Recreation and Aquatic Center, totaling $51.5 million. We've also given out an additional almost $4 million in a host of other strategic initiatives, including COVID-19 relief grants, the music education program you heard about earlier tonight, the school district field trip grant, Centennial Plaza, first responder, pedestrian safety, community day. We've had a lot over the past 8 years, hitting a lot of different parts of the community. 2 years ago, as the last sort of slate of original board members were about to roll off, and as we had just made the rack construction grant, and we knew that we were on the verge of finishing that first big chunk of work and sort of big legacy project with the rack. We decided it was time to do some reflection and think about what the post-rack era would look like. It was a 3-stage process that we did in 2021. First, doing some diversity, equity, and inclusion work, which we continue to do. We had our second community listening campaign, and then we had a series of strategic planning deliberations, which led to the creation of Strategic Plan 2.0. You've read, hopefully, the report on the community listening campaign. As you know, there were a series of process recommendations from the community, everything from continuing to invest wisely to broaden our outreach and increase our education and transparency and ensure diversity on our board and in our decision-making groups. There were a number of community needs identified, downtown revitalization, education, community and social services, a lot of the same things, quite frankly, we did here in the first community listening campaign. There was a lot of consistency there, little different in the order, but I think a lot of the same types of community needs were identified. There were also questions about moving forward. Was there a preference for which sort of area of our program strategy? The reality was both in the survey and focus groups, as well as the town hall meetings, there was a desire to continue all 3. There was support for all 3. There was also questions in the community listening campaign about investment strategy. Should we spend all the money down in the short term, treat the money as endowment and try to live as long as possible, do both? And both in the survey and focus group results, as well as in the town hall meeting, there was a strong desire to do both. So that is what we heard in the community listening campaign, which then led to our strategic planning deliberations, where the board made these conclusions in strategic plan 2.0. First, the board reaffirmed our program strategy framework and maintaining our customer scholarship and our community grants at their current levels and funding strategic grants as the budget allowed. So really just embracing the track we were already on. On the investment side, the board looked at, and Kristen will cover this a little more thoroughly, but just to give you a quick recap, the board looked at a number of options, but decided to look at a quasi-endowment starting balance of about 25 million, target an annual payout of about 1.75 million, which the board felt allowed us to continue community grants and the customer scholarship at current levels, maintain our operating expenses, and still have about almost $1 million each year in additional strategic grants in order to make a meaningful impact in the community on a year-by-year basis. Given that payout, given the modeling that Sandhill had done for us, that would take us about another 20 years of existence without replenishing the corpus. And then we made a commitment to continue to revisit at least every 5 years. We're actually now doing it in a 2-year cycle, given current circumstance, but to continue to relook at the strategy. On the operational side, the board agreed to maintain our current program-focused business model, meaning not invest heavily on the fundraising side. Continue to be committed to having a diverse board and grant and scholarship review panels. Continuing to be proactive about communicating with the community about what we do and our decisions. Continuing to invest wisely to ensure broad community benefits. Continue our current process for developing an annual budget, and then creating an ad hoc committee which would help us move forward in our strategic grant making. That committee was created in late 2021. It deliberated and brought before the board our updated criteria for identifying strategic grant opportunities, bringing added benefits and amenities to our community, focusing on broad community benefits, making sure our benefits are inclusive and equitable, being responsive to the input from the community we heard in the community listening campaign, having a high impact, finding areas where we could specifically make a big difference, and then also augmenting city programs and services, or improving community facilities. That was only a slight tweak on our previous grant making criteria. We also, with this committee's help, updated our strategic grant making priorities in no particular order to include the library, athletic field and park improvements, education, social and human services, community building, community health, safety and wellness, economic vitality, and youth and recreational activities, all of which were responsive to what we heard in the community listening campaign. Since then, we have done a series of additional strategic grants, totaling almost 2.5 million. So another significant chunk. Everything from the music education strategic initiative, an extension of almost $300,000, the field trip grant, additional funding for the Tan Memorial, Community Day, Centennial Plaza, which is another significant $500,000 commitment, and then the additional rack construction contingency of another 1.5 million. So in the past 2 years, we have done another, I think, very substantive set of strategic grants, almost $2.5 million. We also acknowledged, and in response to suggestions from the city council to continue to look at fund development opportunities. The president and I realized that we needed to get some outside expertise to help us think about that. So we engaged the Partnership Resources Group, a fundraising consultancy in the Bay Area, to help us think about that and to look at what realistically are our prospects for fundraising, as well as what would that cost, given that we are a very leanly organized organization and we have not been structured to have a robust fundraising operation. So yes, we might be able to raise some money, but yes, that will also cost some money, and you gotta look at both sides to decide whether that was useful. Partnership Resources Group gave us some great information, saying that yes, there is potential for fundraising in San Bruno. They do believe that there are untapped resources, but at a relatively modest level, not at the level of necessarily replenishing, you know, the $51.5 million we're going to have expended on Iraq. Could be, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but nothing of potentially the seven-figure replenishment. There would be additional steps and investments we would need to make to move forward with that, in terms of doing feasibility studies and really looking at what our potential is. This was just a very high-level study. They also did tell us that, you know, we would need to probably hire fundraising staff, some kind of development director support, as well as really redirect the executive director's time, because an executive director typically in an organization that fundraises typically spends a fairly significant portion of his or her time fundraising. And right now I don't spend my time on that. So if my time had to be shifted to that, potentially additional staff would need to be brought on to take on some of the workload I do in other areas. So it would cause us to restructure organizationally what we were doing. The other thing is that this board, you know, typically organizations that fundraise, the board also participates in that. And you were all brought on, not with that expectation, quite frankly. And so that would require an involvement and commitment from the board or future boards. And so a restructuring of what the board might look like would be required with the fundraising operation as well. As a result, the board appreciated the analysis we received, realized that making a shift in fundraising would be a significant change in the way we operate and would require additional research, analysis, and deliberation before it was willing to move in that direction. So where we are today, we are getting close to paying out the RAC grants. We should be paying those out the remainder by the end of the fiscal year, or maybe just the first quarter of next year, depending on how the city kind of cleans up all of its bookkeeping and we make the final grants. That will leave us probably with net assets in the $25 million range. I think, you know, markets will also affect that, what our portfolio looks like, but I think right now we can say we'll be in sort of that range of about $25 million left at that point. I think and so we have a much better sense than we did 2 years ago about what that pot was going to look like, because we were guessing a little bit. And the reality is we did go through some volatility in the market over the past 2 years. We also have some changed circumstances in that I think 2 years ago there weren't really a lot of potential quote legacy sort of bigger significant projects that we could invest in and seriously look at. And I think there are some opportunities both with the school district that we just heard about, some of the bigger projects that they're looking at. We could have opportunities to invest in, as well as the city itself has just done a community survey looking at community needs and potential capital projects and investments that we might be interested in supporting. The results of that survey, I believe, will be presented to the city council later this month, and then will be shared with us. And there may be opportunities there that weren't there 2 years ago that would make sense for us to consider. and may make sense as one of the, most effective ways to use the restitution funds to make a big difference. In sort of a big investment as opposed to smaller investments over a longer period of time. It's something worth the board considering. So that's where we are at this point. So what we're gonna be doing going forward is really, looking at the strategy, some of the same strategy questions we looked at 2 years ago, but with the current lens. Really, should we consider spending down most or all of the remaining funds on some larger legacy projects in the short to midterm? Now that there may be some opportunities to do that, should we follow the path that the board had kind of settled on 2 years ago of treating the funds as quasi-endowment with investment income fueling the foundation's activities? We decided 2 years ago, not for in perpetuity, but for, about a 20-year time frame. So those are both on the table, or pursuing a combination of, both the spend down, as well as treating the funds as endowment. Given where we are currently, because we have spent another $2.5 million over the past 2 years, pursuing that combination is getting a little trickier, because if you start to make, spend more, there's not going to be much left in the quasi endowment. It's what Kristen will show you. If you're not at a certain level, it's really hard to sustain that and to really make a meaningful difference year in and year out, given that we would still have operating expenses to pay. So I think number 3 will be a harder sort of route to take, but we should still consider it. So with that, I think we should move on to Kristen now, unless there are any quick questions on what I've covered, which hopefully was mainly just refreshing and re-education for all of you, but to making sure that we're all on the same page as we move forward. Otherwise, we'll turn it over to Kristen, and then we can have probably a more robust discussion.
Okay, thank you, Leslie.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here again. I apologize if my voice sounds a little rough. I've been up since 5 a.m. Driving to California to get here done, so I'm here. So I am here basically, as Leslie mentioned, to recap what the board 2 years ago was presented when I basically did this presentation, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So we can skip to the following down the slide. Yep. So Leslie mentioned this a little bit earlier. Just a quick reminder in terms of true endowment versus quasi endowment. Obviously, the foundation selected a quasi endowment. True endowments on the left-hand side, they're restricted. They're typically established at the direction of a donor, held in perpetuity. Principal can't be spent. It's very, very restricted, right? Whereas quasi endowment is quasi for a reason. It's established at the discretion of the board. Principal and income can be withdrawn. It can be spent at any time at the discretion of the board. And then the purpose is to earn long-term investment potential. And there's a couple different names that you can refer to them as. And then just importantly, the San Bruno Community Foundation is not a private foundation, so it does not have the same mandatory annual withdrawals that are subject to that private foundations are subject to. So flexibility has been Leslie covered in terms of the goals and for the organization are kept with that type of account. On the next slide. So what I did here for the board 2 years ago, and what we've refreshed here today, is basically tested out a cash flow analysis, multiple cash flow analyses. So basically testing different starting values and different spending amounts over different periods of time. And you do so using what's called Monte Carlo simulation. So Monte Carlo, you think Monte Carlo, it's a probability analysis. It does 1,000 trials with different market conditions, but every single one of those 1,000 trials has the same annualized return, market return over the time frame that you're testing for. So really, you're just testing the ups and the downs of the market in these scenarios. And so on screen, what you have here are basically in an equity market shock, which here you're seeing an equity market down 25% type of moment, how would that impact a quasi-endowment that's in a reasonably balanced strategy, which is how the foundation's quasi-endowment account is currently managed. And just for some perspective, there have been 6 intra-year events of this magnitude in the past roughly 43 years. But if you're actually looking from a calendar year perspective, January to December, there was only one where the end year performance of the stock market was down more than 25%, and that was in 2008. So that was the Great Recession. And then just as a quick reminder, last year, there was an intra-year drawdown of 24%. But by the end of the calendar year, it had rebounded a little bit, so it was down just under 20%. So it just gives some perspective. The foundation has been through a lot in the 16 years that we've been in, since 2016, in the roughly 7 years that we've been working with the organization. But we're happy to see that a lot has been supported in the community. And then this slide just talks about the benefits of payout smoothing. So this is a look at if you were to say, we're gonna spend an X% every year, we're gonna stick to that percent based on the prior year's balance or based on some average of the prior year's monthly balances. A simple payout is exactly that, and that's the lighter blue line. And so this is a model that looks at institutions and their actual returns from 2011 to 2020, so a 10-year period. So it shows that simple payout, which is much more jagged, right? So if the market's up, you're gonna have more dollars to spend in the following year if you're using a simple percentage. And then the darker line is the smooth payout, which is basically an average of the prior 3 years. So you're getting just a smoother distribution amount. And obviously for organizations, when you're trying to plan a budget, you want to be able to do so with a little bit more foresight. And not be so dependent on what's going on in the actual investment portfolio. And then on the next slide, so in terms of the actual assumptions that were utilized for these spending analyses, the assumed inflation rate is 3%. That's what we utilize for the program. And the portfolio mix you can see there is basically the long-term strategic allocation for the balanced strategy, which is what the quasi-endowment is invested in. The assumption is that it's in that strategy for the full time period in which the analysis is run. And we did multiple versions, right? We did the perpetuity scenario, and then we tested different time frames. So the next slide is a little bit, lots of numbers on here. Let me just go through this real quick. If you look at each investment type, so equity or stock market, fixed income or bonds, and then cash. The second column is an estimated return of each of those types of investments. And then you see the inflation rate assumption of 3%. So that eats away at your portfolio return if inflation is growing at an average of 3% over a long time frame. Obviously, right now we know inflation is a little bit higher than that and had been higher than that over the past year plus. But the long-term inflation average is in that 3% range. And then return adjustments on the next column over of 0.5%. So that makes up for, or that covers basically management fees, transaction costs, and things like that. So your real return in this type of portfolio that's being used to test these scenarios is 3.7%. And then on the next slide, this is the look at the perpetuity analysis. So the different starting balances on the left-hand side, it was run using that 3.7% return. And what you see on the right-hand side, the right-hand column, is essentially what that sustainable endowment payout would look like in today's dollars. Now that in today's dollars means that the program assumes that the amount you can spend would increase by inflation to keep up with purchasing power over the course of the entire plan. So 25 million, you can expect to spend around 900,000 a year in perpetuity and not draw down the portfolio where eventually it goes to zero. So, for example, if you said, let's invest 10 million in some capital project, we're gonna start with a $15 million quasi endowment moving forward, but we still wanna spend 900,000. That's where you can see you're spending over 50% more than what is sustainable. And that actually gets us to the next slide. So lots here, but I thought it's better just to have it all on one slide, so visually you can really kind of think through the options. Same idea, 25 million, 20, 15, or 10 million starting balance. And then time frame, spending it down over 10, 15, 20, or 25 years. What is the amount that would make it so that you could basically spend that amount in today's dollars, not have to worry about what's going on in the market? And over, let's say, in 20 years, you started with 25 million, you see 1.625 million there. The idea is in year 19 or 20, you're gonna be close, right? There's not gonna be a lot of money left, but there should be just enough to get one more year's worth of spending to get to that 20-year mark. But this is all, again, a probability analysis. So like I say with my private clients, I don't run a retirement plan and say, okay, great, see ya, never again. We'll never review this again, right? We review it over time, which is why I think it is prudent to review the strategic plan on a regular basis. So I'll kind of just leave it up there. And if there's any questions, happy to address them.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, are there any questions from the public? There are no questions. And okay, so if there, okay, sorry. Thank you, Kristen and Leslie. I hope all board members now feel up to speed on strategic plan 2.0 and the quasi endowments. This sets the stage for our strategic planning deliberations going forward in early 2024, where we will discuss and consider various options for amending strategic plan 2.0. Possible projects for significant investments, legacy projects like the RAC, and ultimately to confirm or amend the foundation's post-grad program and investment strategies. Right? And now we will move to item number 9, board member comments. Would any board member like to make a comment?
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
No? Okay, I guess we'll move to item number 10. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved. Second.
Okay. We are adjourned. Our next regular meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, December 6th at 7 p.m. when we will award the 23-24 community grants. It's a big meeting. That's always an inspiring and energizing meeting. We hope everyone has a happy and safe Thanksgiving, and thank you all for being here this evening. Thank you to everyone in the audience. Thank you to everyone online. Thank you for being here. Right.